We've got an Obama judge who is melting down out there over the cancellation of the Somali TPS. We're going to get into the documents. And this is curious, a little bit of a reversal for herself, because perhaps she has now been demanded to be impeached. We've got multiple impeachment arguments as well that are making their way into the political zeitgeist, and we're excited to talk about that. But we've got two judges that are now under scrutiny of impeachment, and rightfully so. We've been waiting for some more activity on this area. So we'll talk about that. Then in more deportation news, we've got apparently ankle monitors are being slapped on the Haitians. I've got some video of this, and they're very unhappy about this. They're saying it harkens back to slavery or something, even though there are many thousands of Americans, citizens, wearing ankle monitors right now pursuant to their criminal proceedings. But we'll go through that. Lots of deportation news. We've got tens of thousands of non-citizen trucking licenses being canceled. We've got a mass slew of denaturalizations happening and more coming up on that. And then we've got some election updates, because in Arizona, the secretary, Adrian Fontes, is now being sued. He's trying to do some of the same stuff that we saw in California. You get these ballot measures that come forward, and they go to the voters, and they have very key specific language in there. And then these hack partisan secretaries change the language. And so now they're being sued for that. We've got some SAVE Act updates and more. And it is a beautiful day. We're very glad that you're here and with us. Hopefully your week is unfolding beautifully well. Looks like the tubes have connected themselves perfectly, and that's always good. And so now we can go ahead and get started. Let's start with this impeachment and this very angry judge, starting right here. An Obama judge is melting down. You see, this woman right here is named Allison Burroughs, and she's not happy at all that the Somali TPS status has been canceled. And she's the same judge that we've talked about here for a couple of weeks now, who has done everything in her power to cancel the cancellation so that the Trump administration can actually move forward with deporting these people. Now, the problem for her is she's already lost a couple of times, and the Supreme Court said, you can't do this. So then she tried something sneaky and entered an administrative stay. And then, of course, we went up to the First Circuit and she got slapped down again. And so she's trying it again. And then suddenly we saw enough already. We had a bunch of people now calling for her impeachment, including one representative called Andy Ogles. And he submitted this House resolution to actually begin these impeachment proceedings. We're going to come back to this so you can see what he's talking about and why she's such a problematic activist partisan judge. And the way that we'll do that is by analyzing the briefings, because she is furious, pounding the table mad over what's happening. And it's just enjoyable. So once again, this is a woman who was appointed by Barack Obama. You can see here back in 2014, been on the bench for quite some time, and is up there in Massachusetts with a lot of these other extremely activist judges, many of them literally out of that district. And so she's been a major thorn in the side. She also said that Trump's cancellation of the CBP1 app and was illegal, and called for the reinstatement of parole for hundreds of thousands of migrants and so on and so forth, because she cares more about that constituency than the American citizens over whom she presides as a federal judge. And the case that we're digging into, where she's just screaming mad, is here African Communities Together versus Kristi Noem. It's been going on forever. And that's important because she's going to say that this is all happening so quickly, and these poor Somalians and the people who are a part of America have no notice that it's time for them to go. And so this started in this particular case back on March 9, 2026. And once she entered an administrative stay to cancel Trump's cancellation of TPS, What we're seeing is the DOJ said, all right, listen, enough of this already, okay? We're furious. You have to lift your stay. And they drop this burner, and then she responds to it in a very unhappy manner. So here's what they said to her. They said, all right, listen, Judge Allison, you and this court should dissolve the new administrative stay that you announced on Friday, effective today. The court has now prevented the government from effectuating the termination of Somali's TPS designation for nearly 5 months without ever once concluding that our termination, so Mark Wayne Mullen said it's over, the Supreme Court validated it. You never said that it was unlawful, the Supreme Court confirmed it. You've never explained why the Somali plaintiffs are entitled to any preliminary relief. And that's a problem. So now your, quote, administrative stay entered by you in March, and the same one that you've continued over and over again, you've said is effectively and impermissibly an injunction, or that is exactly what it is really what they're saying. Now, had the court allowed for a response before granting the plaintiff's request for an administrative stay less than 25 hours after they filed it, okay, this has already been canceled now for a long time. And they've been suing, and then these judges say, well, there's these other issues, and so it gives us justification to continue to think about this, and I need more time administratively to think about it. If you would have given us a response, you didn't. They submitted another request again. You granted it 25 hours later. The government would have explained, but we never got the opportunity, that it is unlawful to continue to indefinitely block an important government policy. And she's blocking it nationwide. She's not just blocking it here in Massachusetts. It's across the nation because these judges are little insurrectionists. You have, if in effect, given a de facto temporary restraining order. It's not an administrative stay, it's a TRO. And the court's de facto grant of relief has prolonged this litigation. And what you've done is kept thousands of TPS holders and applicants in limbo, and you've prevented the government from actually advancing our decision to terminate TPS for Somalia. We published this decision back in January, okay? It's August. And keep in mind, she's going to whine in her order coming back down in a minute, saying, this is all happening so fast. You're not even giving them a wind down window. It's been known since January. It's canceled. They have to go home. So this should have taken effect back on March 17, 2026. And throughout those months, the court has avoided applying the factors necessary. You failed to comply with Rule 65. You've extended relief universally, despite the Supreme Court prohibiting that. And throughout those months, the court has nonetheless required us at the executive branch from initiating removal proceedings. We've had to allow thousands of people to remain in the United States with full work authorization, despite the people electing the president and Mark Wayne Mullen and Homeland Security coming to their determination under their rights under the law to terminate Somali TPS. So a grant of relief against us now and the agencies is an extraordinary exercise of your judicial power. It's illegal. And they explain that robust, long-standing rules govern all of this. You're not supposed to overstep your role in our system. We have separated powers, and for a reason. So you, Judge Burroughs, prolonging an already lengthy grant of relief is running end runs around those important protections. And we're being irreparably harmed now. We have our actions in this serially invalidated. You're not even considering the merits because you just keep making stuff up. And so you should dissolve this right now. And you should proceed to, quote, rule promptly on our motions. We request a ruling on this by 5 p.m. today. And they got it. She's now going, all right, yeah, all right. Now, if the court does not dissolve this administrative stay, we're going to appeal your ass again and take you back up to the First Circuit. And we already won there. So we're going to go back up and come back down and slap you back down again. So as you remember, Judge, on March 13th, months ago, This court entered an administrative stay pending its consideration of the Somali cancellation. At the time, they sought a preliminary relief, the Somalis, on their claims that the termination failed to comport with the APA, the Administrative Procedure Act. You didn't follow the appropriate methodologies before you canceled it. Oh, and now, foreign TPS holders here on temporary status, they're making their claims based on equal protection under the Constitution, because our Constitution applies to them. Then we remember it was a glorious day indeed, a bright spot in an otherwise sore spot of Supreme Court decision making. On June 25th, the Supreme Court said that non-statutory challenges to TPS terminations are not reviewable at all by you, and that a materially similar equal protection challenge was not likely to succeed even if the merits were reviewable. Now, several members of the court questioned but found no need to resolve other constitutional allegations. And so we're back down here. And so then, as soon as the Supreme Court said, we win, we can cancel these things, and the courts are not allowed to substitute their judgment for ours because they're judges, not elected officials who then build out a cabinet of homeland officials, on July 1, we came back down and said you have to lift your administrative stay. Okay, SCOTUS just said they're not going to win. They could not possibly succeed, and there could not be any justification in continuing the stay or the administrative block of the cancellation. So the court, again, you, Allison, you denied our request. Instead, you said, we're going to hold on to this until further notice. Then a week and a half later, the court set a 6-week briefing schedule. 6 weeks. It just goes on and on and on. It's like the Energizer Bunny. It never stops. You said we have to now think about this, and the administrative stay would remain in effect throughout the entire briefing schedule and through your ruling at some unknown future date, just stalling it out. So the government appealed that. We went back up to the First Circuit, and we sought mandamus and more. Now, when the time came for the plaintiffs, the Somalians, to file their first brief in defense of their claims, they didn't do that. They went back and amended their original complaint so that they could shove in some new arguments so that the judge could say, oh, I have to restart the stay. Now, since there's a new claim here, we don't need to decide the original complaint. We're just going to reset the clock. We're going to go back to the beginning because we now have a whole new complaint. So in response, the court entered an order again upon issuance of the First Circuit's mandate saying the previous stay would be dissolved, but a new stay would be entered for precisely the same reasons as the previous stay. You just restart. Today, the First Circuit remanded and declined to retain jurisdiction. The First Circuit already told you that the court must rule promptly on this motion, and nothing in the judgment down from the Court of Appeals said that we approve your briefing deadlines, which again extended it another 6 weeks, just another 6 weeks, just another 6 weeks, just another 5 minutes, I'll get up. Judge Dunlap dissented. He said there was no basis to issue an open-ended administrative stay here, saying the court's order effectively granted injunctive relief for an indeterminate period of time without even weighing anything on the merits. Also pointing out that the judge's latest order is continuing the prior stay, and it just keeps getting extended and extended and extended. So now the DOJ says, listen, we again are back and we request relief from your stay. Again, you entered another one. You didn't even give us time to file an opposition. You've done that before, but you didn't even do it here, which is just so scandalous. It's so shameful. These people are partisan hacks through and through. Now, indefinitely maintaining relief in favor of the Somalians is legal error, and this exceeds the court's authority. You're not allowed to do this. The court captioned its order as an administrative stay, but it's not a stay. It's an injunction. It indefinitely blocks the government from canceling TPS for Somalia, and it delays our ability to do anything. In district courts, grant of this type of relief are strictly governed by the rules, and Rule 65 gives us 2 ways that we do this analysis, and you didn't do any of it. Supreme Court also, in case you forgot, has made clear that courts cannot issue universal preliminary injunctions or TROs. She knows that, which is why she just said that I identify my order as a stay, as an administrative stay. I choose to express my order identity as not being a universal injunction or a restraining order. So I can do it. And she kind of looks the part. By entering a stay, though, that's scheduled to extend for weeks, if not months, without ever assessing the legal merits of the Somali claims or any other factors, you're exceeding the time limits. Now, unlike stays that are coming down from the Court of Appeals to delay the effect of district courts, there is a foundation in law for some of those things, but you are imposing on us in the executive branch. And so that means that this functions in a manner that's wholly indistinguishable from any other type of restraining order or preliminary injunction. And it has none of the limitations. It basically just gives you carte blanche to do whatever you want. Now, a TRO could not possibly be warranted here, even if you thought that it could be. Their claims and the Somalians are completely and plainly meritless. They say that termination of Somali status is ultra virus. It's outside the law because the power to terminate TPS was never given to Homeland, and Mark Wayne couldn't do it. It needed to be the AG. But this claim fails, okay? It's not even constitutional, and the Supreme Court said that the bar on judges applies to all non-constitutional claims, so they can't even make that argument. So stop entertaining it. Further, their other claims that the review bar only applies to the AG is not viable. We already saw, the Supreme Court said this. Beyond holding that there can be no judicial review of the claim, the case in Doe also confirmed that the TPS decision rests with the Secretary of Homeland. And the statute refers only to the Attorney General because Homeland didn't exist when Congress created TPS back in 1990 in a disaster. And even if they were somehow right that TPS authority never transferred over to Mark Wayne, that would not amount to a likelihood of success because it would mean that the redesignations creating eligibility were invalid from the start. So if you're saying only the AG can cancel it, well, guess what? The Somalians were approved by Homeland. So if he can't cancel it, then that means he couldn't start it. So that would mean that the entire status going all the way back to the beginning was completely void. Now, second, with respect to their due process claims, the guests in our country are now saying we've got extensive due process. They assert liberty and property interests in their TPS status. We invited you in as a guest, and now you say, it's my right. I have a property right in being here, including employment authorization and removal protection. But they have no protected or property interest in that. It is literally temporary by statute. It goes to the discretion of the secretary. Many statutes being cited here, many cases being cited here, saying the termination of the Haiti's TPS status didn't deprive them of life, liberty, or property. Other ones saying this is discretionary. And aliens have in another case, no constitutionally protected liberty or property interest in such a discretionary grant of relief. So you can't endorse that either, Allison. Now, the plaintiffs, finally, the Somalians' due process claim is also meritless. They're trying to graft law governing individualized adjudication on a per person, per basis application for status to all of TPS designations. That approach is foreclosed, not allowed to do that. The termination of a country's designation from TPS is a categorical judgment about a foreign state and national interests. And so you can't rely on that either. And their equal protection claim also fails. SCOTUS just rejected a materially indistinguishable EPC equal protection claim about the Haitians, holding that the claim could not succeed because all of the cited statements from Trump, remember Trump was kind of talking smack about him, called it heated language and broad denigration and the maligning of Haitians, antipathy and derogatory comments and all of those things, all were no basis for equal protection because those were policy views that could rest on race-neutral justifications. And when you see equal protection, it's usually about more racism. But there are other race-neutral reasons for sending the Haitians and the Somalians and all of the rest of them home. So they identify nothing that could distinguish their claim. Then they try to tack on national origin, which is a suspect class. And that makes it even worse Distinctions drawn among nationalities by the executive branch are literally permissible features of immigration. That's the point. And TPS designations, this is the DOJ wrapping up, are allowed and expressly distinguished on the basis of natural origin. That's why we say, oh, the Haitians can come, but not the Russians, because the Haitians had an earthquake or whatever. And so their claims provide no basis for continuing to prevent the executive branch from effectuating this decision. Recognizing the weaknesses of these claims, another judge properly refused after actual briefing, to enter even an administrative stay in the Abudu case. But you, judge, and your order would exceed the typical 14-day length of a TRO and not even assess the merits. And so in the meantime, while you're jerking us all around, we can't implement our policy. Why? Because you say so. Now, to the extent that they might offer the Somalians the All Writ Acts as a source of alternative authority, that would fail. You can't use that either. You can't go through and make an end run around the other statutory procedures. That's all articulated, and you may not effectively grant interim relief that lasts for months and you just shove it in under the guise of an administrative stay. We've already got Supreme Court precedent, and so this is a burner. They conclude saying, accordingly, you should dissolve this and treat it, or at the very least, at most, treat it as a TRO, limit their applicability to the people named in this case only, and set a specific expiration period as required by civil rules of procedure, signed here by the DOJ in a fiery motion. And boy, do we love it. So then what happened is they said, listen, as we saw at the very start, if you don't get a ruling on us today, Judge, we're going to appeal you again. Okay, we've already done this. We've already won. We're going to do it again. So the judge complied. And here's what she said back in response. And she's essentially melting down here, very unhappy about what's happened. And she says, all right, now this is Allison Burroughs here, this lady, the Obama judge who was appointed in Massachusetts. She said, all right, in its decision filed yesterday, the First Circuit that slapped her down before said the district court must rule promptly on the motion before it. Shortly thereafter, the government filed a motion to lift the stay, the one that we just read, while briefing on the plaintiff's motion was still pending. Okay, so she enters the stay. She gets slapped down by the First Circuit. The Somalians amend their complaint. She says, I'm going to create a new administrative stay and basically extend the block of the cancellation. And I'm going to set a briefing schedule and give them a bunch of time. So the court's decision, she writes, to enter a stay was informed by the fact that if or when the revocation takes effect, she says over 1,000 people may face grave risks of severe physical violence if removed to a country suffering a humanitarian crisis that has called and led the president to call Somalia one of the most dangerous countries in the world. She also whines that this would be a forced separation from community and family in the U.S., including minor children, all due to an abrupt reversal of government policy that has been in place for 3.5 decades. And it's wild to think that it's abrupt. It's new. They couldn't anticipate it or foresee that this might happen, even though the president campaigned largely on this, tried it in his first administration and was blocked at every turn, and then now intimated that it was going to be canceled back in January. Then we went up to the Supreme Court, had briefing for months on it. They issued a ruling, and then all of a sudden, it's now an abrupt reversal. It's not abrupt. It's been going on for years. So those potential consequences, complains the judge, combined with the separation of powers issues inherent in judicial review, convinced me of the need to proceed carefully, though under a reasonable time frame, which we explained in my initial order granting the stay. Now, the court concluded, and we continue to believe, that a stay was a fitting procedural device to allow this to get fleshed out. Now, when the court entered the first stay at issue here, her first block, it noted that we would require the parties to comply with a briefing schedule, and we get through this as quickly as possible. And so they submitted a briefing schedule, and at that time, the government, the DOJ, didn't raise any concerns about the length of time. So she's essentially saying you're conceding, you didn't object, and so therefore it was valid. We proceeded according to that schedule, and the court was prepared to rule on that after the Supreme Court arguments in Mullen versus Doe when the Supreme Court handed that down. So now she's essentially saying that you didn't raise any objection to the stay of this action from March, but they didn't have an urgency then because the Supreme Court hadn't decided. So once the Supreme Court came back down, then of course they're going to say, we won, and now you need to stop blocking us because we've been totally vindicated. So she's not fired up yet, but in light of the fact that the Supreme Court resolved some but not all of these decisions, as well as the Somalians' intent to amend their pleadings to bring new claims, we concluded, the judge, that there was no reason again to lift the stay. And after reviewing the briefing schedules proposed by the parties, the court concluded that a roughly, again, 6-week briefing schedule, just like the first time, was similar. And so it was appropriate. Like, I granted this back in March and you didn't complain. Then the Supreme Court came back down in June and now you're complaining? Now, at that point, though it remained quite willing to seek extensions in other cases, and though it did not oppose staying the action pending in the Supreme Court's decision, then the government, the DOJ, as we just read, began to strenuously object to me, Allison Burroughs, seeking further briefing and continuing the stay while they're writing their briefs. And on appeal of this case, then we got this new complaint. The general counsel from Homeland is now complaining, Judge, you're setting a sluggish briefing schedule, and identified the resulting evil from what this judge has done as effectively granting the Somalis, quote, a wind down period that Homeland expressly declined to grant. So, in other words, you weren't complaining before, but now you're complaining, and that's unreasonable. Now, here is where she just melts down. Now, leaving aside the shameful cruelty inherent in eschewing a wind down period for people under threat of deportation, many of whom are productive members of our community who have lived here for years, built a life here, worked here, and raised families here, the court is mindful of the Supreme Court ruling and the First Circuit judgment in this case. So this is what you call having a temper tantrum. Okay, I know I have to follow the Supreme Court. I know I have to follow the First Circuit. They've already incorporated your temper tantrum analysis into their reasoning and their logic when they decided accordingly and slapped you down multiple times. But she needs to make it known that there is no wind down period. And it's an insane comment. She just got done explaining the whole procedural history here. And this has been going on for years now. Okay, we tried to cancel a lot of this the first term that Trump got blocked. It was briefed fully, went up to the Supreme Court. We had oral arguments. We waited months. We got a decision. They've had a wind down period, and they have known that this is going to go away. Now, that said, the court will not abdicate its responsibility to make a thoughtful, well-reasoned decision after affording parties a full and fair opportunity to be heard. And so it is therefore ordered. And remember, she gave them 6 weeks. Okay, so her original position was she's got 6 weeks. We're going to have briefing. The Somalians, take a few weeks. Then the DOJ take a few weeks. And then we'll have a reply in a few weeks. And then I'll issue a ruling. Once briefing's completed, it's going to be a couple of months. But now she reverses herself. She says, okay, so now it's ordered that the plaintiffs, the Somalians, respond to the Homeland DOJ by 5 p.m. tomorrow. So she really is accelerating it, isn't she? So it goes from 6 weeks to like 24 hours. The court further amends the scheduling order on the supplemental briefing and changes all of that. Pursuant to the amended schedule, now Homeland's brief is also due by tomorrow at 5 p.m. Wild. And any reply brief will be due the following day on Thursday at 5 p.m. And so the court anticipates a decision on the motion, which will be accompanied by a decision on the Somalians' emergency motion if the court decides to lift the stay early next week. So it goes from 6 weeks to about 7 days because now she's under a lot of scrutiny. And I wouldn't put it past her, honestly, to, come up with some other justification to keep them here. You can see she's just a partisan political actor. She's now being threatened with impeachment. She's now getting slapped back by the Homeland Council. And she's kind of warning them, if you return to the First Circuit prior to this, as they threaten in their motion, the court will assume that it had lost jurisdiction, and that's going to delay my rulings because you're going to be appealing it and taking this up. And so then I can't act on this. And so if you want me to act quickly, I'll act quickly. But if you want to appeal me, then it's going to slow everything down. So that's from Allison Burroughs. And you can see just how snaky these people are. August 4, 2026. So she tries her very best to extend it for another 6 weeks and then another 6 weeks already happening. And then they clap back at her. And then she says, OK, we're going to do it in just a few days. And ultimately, I certainly believe that she'll continue to try to finagle this, but you can see this is pounding the table. This is what we call a temper tantrum. You know what that is. And here she needs to make her point known that this is shameful cruelty for canceling a temporary status for the Somalians. And so she'll use the power of her Article 3 court to govern the entire nation and to override the will of the American people who elected President Trump, who appointed Mark Wayne Mullen to get this stuff taken care of. So that's why now there are demands for her impeachment. And here's one of the lawyers who was working on this, James Percival, responding to her little whine fest that she put in her order today. He said, despite the T standing for temporary, Somali TPS began in 1991. Judge Burroughs is very grumpy that after spending 6 weeks deciding if she's bound by the Supreme Court, that I now want to hurry her up. Also, I am sure her accusing me of shameful cruelty will assuage all fears that she is engaging in naked politics. Oh, firing back right at her from James Percival. That's Homeland General Counsel. And we don't need to play with these judges anymore. Okay, they're partisan actors. They're not independent, neutral, nonpartisan judges. They are acting with a political end in mind, and they need to be dealt with accordingly. And it's unfortunate because there used to kind of be this, honor system in the law. Like you wouldn't come out here and scream at the judges too aggressively. Notice a lot of lawyers still don't do that. We're kind of one of a handful that are out there calling these judges activists and shameful operators. But by and large, they've built, this credibility up over generations, and it takes just a couple of these judges to tear the whole thing down. So here was more from the general counsel, James Percival. He's saying, here, this is absolutely absurd, and now we're fighting back. And I appreciate this guy now calling her out openly.
What's going on with some of these district judges is absolutely absurd. I think TPS is a very good example. I mean, we won this case in the Supreme Court, and the stuff that's being filed now is completely frivolous. And any judge that's playing along with it is engaged in naked politics. There is no good faith basis to enjoin any of these TPS wind downs. And the way I think about it is what these judges are doing is they're engaging in naked politics, and then they're shrouding it in the thin veneer of legalese to kind of give it legitimacy. And if we respond to that by saying, oh, wow, that's interesting, let's analyze their legal position, we are legitimizing something that is not legitimate. Yep. It is naked political activism. And sometimes I feel like the kid in The Emperor Has No Clothes, maybe saying the thing that everybody else is afraid to say. But this is absurd what we're facing, and it absolutely should be called out. What's going on?
100%. And thank you, James Percival, for taking the stand on that. Call out these judges. They can act honorable and they'll be treated with honor and respect. Otherwise, if they act like activist hacks, they'll be treated accordingly. And so we now have Congress saying time to impeach them. Andy Ogles says, I have just introduced articles of impeachment against radical judicial activist Judge Allison Burroughs for ignoring the Supreme Court and attempting to force mass migration from Somalia into American communities. America is not Africa's dumping ground. We will end TPS, remove those who have no lawful right to remain, and put sovereignty of the American people first. And here is that submission sent into Congress, articulated here, saying, be it resolved that Allison Dale Burroughs, a judge in Massachusetts, is impeached for high crimes and misdemeanors, saying these will now be exhibited to the House of Representatives and to the American people, saying under Article 1, she defied the authority of both federal law and the Supreme Court of the United States. They already found she loses. She didn't care. Burroughs issued a stay on the lawful determination by the president to end TPS for Somalia. And in issuing this stay, Burroughs ignored the clear intention of Congress that was passed by law. They wrote and codified, quote, there is no judicial review of any determination from Homeland with respect to cancellation. And she didn't care. In issuing this stay, she attempted to get around the Supreme Court as well by entertaining spurious allegations of racial and national origin discrimination against an administration that has chosen not to renew a single TPS status at all. We're not discriminating against the Somalians, okay? They're all canceled. And so in issuing this stay, Burroughs usurped the authority delegated to the President of the United States to determine whether to extend TPS, and the President didn't. And so accordingly, Allison Burroughs, the judge, has engaged in conduct so contrary to her role under the Constitution of the United States that she is guilty of high crimes and misdemeanors. She is unfit to hold the office of federal judge, and she should be removed from office with haste. And you don't know if there's some of this pressure that's coming down to bear on her that causes her to suddenly reverse herself and really accelerate the entire proceeding, or if she just realizes that she doesn't want to get slapped down again from the First Circuit. But that is now being submitted, and she's not alone. There's another inquiry that's also underway. So the AG out of Florida, named James Uthmeyer, also wants some inquiry on this lady right here, Miss Nancy G. Abudu, the judge recently appointed by Joe Biden back on May 26, 2023. She assumed office, went to Colombia, and has some very interesting connections out there. Parents from Ghana, and comes from South Africa, although she was born in Alexandria, Virginia back in 1974. And now the AG of Florida is saying she's got to go too, or at least be investigated. We've got this from him saying, today, I sent a letter over to the judiciary committees, to Speaker Johnson, to Chairman Grassley, to Jim Jordan, and James Comer, requesting an impeachment of Nancy Abudu. Judge Abudu, where is her problem? She served as the Southern Poverty Law Center's Director of Strategic Litigation. Oh, you mean the SPLC that's facing federal charges for funding white nationalism? For having intercourse with Nazis, even though they're executives at the SPLC, for laundering donations into propping up white supremacist so-called groups during part of its fraud that funded the KKK with donor money. So he sent this one in as well. And these judges are everywhere. And let's not forget the SPLC. Guess who else we just learned was a former director, board member of the SPLC, Jocelyn Benson, out there in Michigan, who's running for governor. So we see this was another inquiry. So James sent this from Florida. He said, all right, Congress, listen up. I write to request the initiation of an impeachment inquiry to Abudu. She's on the Court of Appeals. We need to determine whether her service as a top attorney for the SPLC warrants her impeachment and removal from the 11th Circuit. Only those of highest character are fit to administer the laws of this great nation. And in light of recent revelations about potential criminal conduct by the SPLC, Judge Abudu and her leadership role within the SPLC raises serious questions about what she knew and what she did, and whether she would continue serving on the federal bench. And so, as such, I strongly recommend that the House and Senate take up their constitutional duty to serve as a check on the judicial branch, and they absolutely need to accept this invitation. It is their duty to do this. If they don't do it, the executive branch can't do it. John Roberts is not going to get his own people in order, clearly. So there's no one else. Now, as you were aware, Congress, a federal grand jury returned an indictment against the SPLC. We've covered it extensively here. And not much activity on that case. There's been a couple briefing orders, but not much. The indictment details how the SPLC, a supposedly anti-extremist organization, actually facilitated a decade-long clandestine operation that literally funded extremist groups like the Ku Klux Klan, the Sadistic Souls Motorcycle Club, and one of their top officials was having intercourse with one of the operators. Quote, between at least 2014 and 23, the SPLC got donation money under the auspices that the funds would be used to dismantle violent extremist groups. But they didn't do that. Instead, some of that cash was used to literally benefit the violent extremist groups that they claim to oppose. That is otherwise known as fraud. Now, their fraudulent scheme was complex and pervasive. To perpetuate the fraud, these extremist activities, what they did is committed wire fraud. They would go out, they would make materially false representations and omissions. Bunch of leftists would donate to them. Then they would make false statements to banks. They would create fake bank accounts. They started several, quote, fictitious entities to hold and distribute the money. The banks didn't know exactly what these things were, but they didn't want to be seen as paying white nationalist groups, so they just made up entities. The SPLC committed concealment money laundering by concealing the true nature and the source and the ownership and the control of how they donated the money that they paid out to the so-called Nazis. Now, all of this was to fund the very extremism that they decry. And because of these revelations, I've also commenced a deceptive and unfair trade practices investigation into them on behalf of the state of Florida. Now, Judge Abudu at the time was one of the top SPLC lawyers from 19 to 23 while this fraud was ongoing. In fact, she was the director of strategic litigation who created practice groups and oversaw litigation. So it strains credulity to think that Judge Abudu, a senior legal officer at the SPLC, would not have been aware of this alleged criminal conduct during her tenure. Now, you guys in Congress, you have the sole power of impeachment, as you know, and impeachments may be made for high crimes and misdemeanors, which I believe that Abudu may be responsible for during her time over there. She may have committed these crimes by failing to disclose these fraudulent practices during her confirmation process. And the Orwellian lengths that the SPLC went through, they traveled to deceive its donors, are particularly disturbing, giving the groups that they were ultimately funding. And so her knowledge of and involvement in this conduct necessitates an impeachment inquiry. A sitting judge should not be able to escape impeachment for wrongful conduct occurring prior to her appointment that she may have concealed from the Senate and the public during her confirmation hearing. And so the Constitution grants Congress the power to check the judiciary. In the normal course, judges oversee the process that holds accountable individuals who acted wrongfully. But what about when those individuals are judges? Who judges the judges? Almost like who watches the watchers. So the Constitution provides the answer. Congress does. You do. Your action is necessary to ensure that the federal judges entrusted to exercise judgment in life, liberty, and property are worthy of this public trust and to preserve public confidence in our courts. Nice. Sincerely, James Uthemeyer from Florida, the Attorney General. And that means we've got now 2 open impeachment inquiries. We've got a House resolution. We've got the state of Florida. And we have an Obama judge, Allison Burroughs, now on the ropes, essentially reversing herself after getting castigated by Homeland, and all to fight in favor of the Somalians against the American people who elected President Trump to make these changes. So the judicial insurrection continues on. We're seeing some efforts in response. Hopefully we have Ogles, who gets a whole slew of other Congress people to sign on with this so we can at least make the mark and impeach Allison Burroughs and impeach Judge Abudu and the others. There are many other out there who deserve this. And so we're going to keep our eye on this one. Thank you for joining and subscribing as we do. All right, now, speaking of some deportations happening here, we got some other news, and this one is also very interesting. The Haitians are now getting fitted with ankle monitors. They had an option to leave and go home. Their status has been canceled, but they say, no, we're going to continue to be here because it's our right to stay, even though it's clearly not. And so now there are reports emerging that in Ohio, they're being called into facilities and then being fitted with tracking devices. And they're very unhappy about this, saying it's racism, it's discrimination, it's reminiscent of slavery and all sorts of insane things. But ABC News was reporting this, and we've got video footage of the ankle monitors on the ankles, which we'll come back to. But here's what ABC says by way of background. Hundreds of Haitian immigrants in Ohio who had TPS, which is now canceled, have been summoned by Homeland. Come on in for an in-person check-in, and some of them get slapped with an ankle monitor. Now, the move from the government comes after SCOTUS said that they're allowed to cancel this. One person who's mad about it, called Steve Foster, said many, regardless of whether they have a pending asylum claim, and many of them are just racing to say you can't get rid of us because of my asylum, have gotten a DHS call-in letter to show up there. Some showed up, got ankle monitors, and even future court dates. Other people confirmed this is happening. A guy called Viles Dorsanville saying, well, we're just helping these folks go to this appointment, and when they get there, they interview them and they leave with an ankle monitor. Now, TPS, of course, was established back in 1952, and it was a completely exploited provision that never should have been passed. Now, Homeland responded, and they said, yeah, do you know what TPS means? It means temporary. Exactly that, temporary. For too long, TPS has been allowed to function as a de facto amnesty program, despite Congress never intending it to be permanent. Saying what we would say now is it's closing time, which means you don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. Now, they're saying they're filled with anxiety. They are fearful. They are uncertain when it comes to what they should do next. There are a couple of options. If you haven't already applied, which is a ridiculous thing that is even being allowed, then you squandered the time to do that. So now your option is to go home. We keep getting lectured repeatedly about how amazing these foreign countries are and why we want these people here, because they bring with them amazing work ethic and their tremendous culture and the vibrancy of life and all this other crap. If that's true, then that means it exists back in their home country. But the point is it doesn't, which is why they don't want to go anywhere. So here's one other video of this. I got a couple of these queued up. These getting clipped over for us courtesy of Oilia Scootercaster out in New York. And here's one video with a woman who can't even speak English, don't know how long she was here, explaining what happened to her when she went in there and got fitted with one of these monitors.
Yeah, I received the letter Tuesday. They tell me if I want to take $2,600 to go to Haiti.
Yep.
Or if I would stay here, be arrested, and put that ankle monitor in my leg.
Yep.
Yeah, they're gonna send me some paperwork to come back again in a week or so.
And does she live in the Springfield area, or where does she? Where do you live?
Within Springfield. Yeah, I live in Springfield. I don't have much to say. I'm already in jail, and they put monitor in my ankle. So, yeah, I received the.
You know how you can get that ankle monitor off pretty quickly over here. Hop on an airplane and go back to Haiti, and you won't have to worry about that because we won't need to monitor you anymore. So that's one exchange here. And there was a news reporter over there talking about immigration attorneys. This is a woman called Ava Joyi saying, here's my report. And they talked with another immigration attorney. This is coming out of a news entity, which is called Scripps News. And so she was out there talking to people about what's going on with some more footage.
Scripps News legal affairs correspondent Abudu Burnett joins us live in Washington. And Abudu, what have you learned about this new development where Haitian TPS holders are being tracked now by federal officials?
Hey there, Del. Well, I have learned that in recent days, former Haitian TPS holders started to receive letters from DHS requesting that they show up for appointments. And once they showed up for those appointments, they were being outfitted with ankle monitors. We're going to start to show you some of those images. Many of these folks in Ohio, they went for their first check-in with DHS over the weekend on a Sunday. Some of the attorneys told me that it was very unusual to receive a letter asking people to show up on.
So you can see here, please come to the office listed below, in-person check-in, bring with you any and all immigration documents, bring this letter with you. If you are unable to do so and not be here, return this letter to the office at once.
On a Sunday, but once they entered the door, they weren't kept in custody there. Instead, they were given ankle monitors by DHS and then sent back home. Officials there within Ohio, specifically immigration attorneys, told me that it's not unusual for people to have ankle monitors. But what's unusual about these circumstances is that ankle monitors are usually reserved for people who are seen as a flight risk or if they have previous criminal history. As you may
Yeah, by the way, there are many, many Americans walking around with ankle monitors on right now. You get charged with a crime, you're a flight risk because you won't come back to court. You get an ankle monitor. You're an American citizen. You have a presumption of innocence. You have due process and all the things. They say, we're still going to strap you up with one of those things, or we can just take you into custody. Which one would you like? Do you want to go to jail and sit in confinement, or do you want us to release you pursuant to these terms and conditions? And of course, everybody takes the ankle monitor and walks around until their case is resolved because we don't want them absconding from the law. We don't want them fleeing from the courts. And in this case with the citizen, sometimes people will leave. They'll go down to Mexico. They'll get out of Dodge. They won't come back if they know they're going away for a long time. This is the same thing. They would be absconding from the law. We have concerns that they are going to be a flight risk because they're not going to want to come back and address their immigration proceedings lest they get thrown onto an airplane and a FUED on out of here. So it's the same thing. So please stop crying about it.
You recall back in June, the U.S. Supreme Court ruled that the Trump administration is allowed to cancel temporary protected status specifically for Haitians and Syrians. But that is a decision that ultimately affected people from other countries. And what some immigration attorneys in Ohio are now telling me is that the people who now have these ankle monitors on them, they're really concerned that this is yet another way for the government to track them. But they're also concerned about the optics. They believe this is a way for the Trump administration to try to instill fear in these Haitians.
Well, they should have fear. They're not following the law. They've got an order to leave. They have no more status here. Why do we have to keep rolling out the red carpet to make it comfortable? Would they like a pillow as they continue to violate the law? Can we give them more SNAP benefits and more health care and more schooling?
Some of them have like a very basic concern of like, how am I going to take my child to school with ankle monitor on me?
Like any other American does.
Perceived as a criminal, you know, or how I'm going to
go
to work in daycare to work with children and have ankle monitor.
You shouldn't be. You have no more work authorization. So you shouldn't be working in daycare with children, obviously.
And have ankle monitor. So the basic concern for people is like, I have this device on me that's going to prevent me from living my life, which is already complicated, and they live in fear now of being deported.
Well,
and this is just adding more stress to them.
And DHS has repeatedly said that temporary protected status was meant to be temporary. When I requested a statement from them earlier today, they responded and said that many people have the option to take that $2,600 and leave the country voluntarily.
We'll take it off as soon as you land.
For DHS posted on social media just this morning in response to this new reporting that we're now seeing. And this is what they said on social media. He wrote, President Trump ran on ending TPS abuse, and he wanted to cite decisively. We spent a year and a half litigating it all the way to the Supreme Court, and we won decisively. The only question now is whether these judges still believe in the Constitution. That right there is a reference to the fact that we are still waiting for a federal district court judge to put into effect this order that came from the U.S. Supreme Court, which says the Trump administration is allowed to cancel temporary protected status. And even though we have not seen that order from that lower court judge as yet, Del, we're seeing steps that are now being taken by the administration based on reporting from the ground that DHS is now putting ankle monitors on these former Haitian TPS holders. We also know that DHS has canceled TPS not only for Haiti and Syria, but for at least 5 other countries. And this is something that could potentially affect hundreds of thousands of people.
All right, perfect. So ankle monitors are up, and as usual, we get the usual leftist lunatics who show up. You see, once again, from Oilia Scootercaster, she got a whole crew of people out there very unhappy that the Haitians are now getting ankle monitors and are about to get deported, or at least tracked until their status is reconciled. So all these people are out here. We got a real problem over there on that side. Look at all these people who were saying, "Love America rally, protect our immigrants, no kings." All right. So I don't know if anybody's paying for this or if these people have jobs or what they're doing, but they're just hanging out there all day with these signs: "Stop mass deportations, liberty and justice for all. She's watching. Love your neighbors, no exceptions, dignity and more. No troops, no ICE raids, due process." All right, so you get these people. Here's just a little taste of this lunacy.
Immigrants are welcome here, no hate, no fear. Immigrants are welcome safe. No ICE, no KKK. No KKK, no fascist USA.
No KKK, no fascist USA. As their country is being taken away from them by foreign invaders. Total lunatics. But that's what you'd expect there from a suicidal type of ideology. They're happy to see that happen. But the good news is deportations are ramping up aggressively. You see Fox News reporting on some of the numbers saying this is a new record, and it takes a little bit of time to raise these stats. The agency made roughly 51,000 immigration arrests in July, according to federal sources, the highest monthly total in its history, and an average of 1,645 arrests every single day, which is, good, but we got to really bump those up, but we got to ramp this up. So it's the second straight month ICE has broken its all-time arrest record after June. In June, they had 4,300. And it's continuing to get more aggressive. So the surge comes now. We've got thousands of new ICE agents hitting the streets. We've got a bunch of funding going on, billions of dollars as a result of the reconciliation bills. Now, ICE has also expanded operations nationwide and even got 30 arrests at U.S. airports in July. So those numbers need to continue rising and rising and rising. Now, Caroline Levitt says another vector is underway. 28,000 trucker licenses held by illegal aliens, which should have never been granted at all, have also now been canceled. And Breitbart's reporting on this, saying 28,000 CDLs that were given to non-citizens, insane, gone. And now they can be replaced by U.S. military veterans and other Americans who want these jobs. These are good jobs. Driving, trucking is a very good job. Used to be a great job until it got infiltrated by non-citizens and foreigners who then suppressed wages and forced everybody out. But the admin recently posted a press release saying that they have been working with their counterparts to completely cancel 24,000 non-citizen CDLs. They can't even speak or read English. And they're also moving to shut down 9,500 driving schools, many of which are just fake, saying, "We will be a force multiplier at the Department of Homeland Security to clean up America's roads. And we're using every lever at our disposal to ensure the safety of American families." So these people who can't read and write English and who can't hardly drive a vehicle stop slamming into the back of families and minivans. Too many American lives have been lost in completely avoidable accidents because they've been granted CDLs driving 18-wheelers And so now Homeland is partnering with Transportation. We're going to be investigating CDL schools across the country. This is a whole of government approach. And now the veterans can go and have these good jobs. And since they can read and write English, America will be a lot safer as a result. Now, in addition to that, we're also continuing on with our mass denaturalization effort. And this is pretty incredible since the prior numbers were ultimately zero. How many denaturalization cases did we hear before this new administration? Essentially zero, if any. Now we've got 24 of them, the largest surge in recorded history. And again, you need those numbers to get bumped up dramatically, but this is unprecedented, really. So the cases bring total denaturalization filings to 88 since January 20th, 2005, when Trump came back in. And this means that people who got citizenship are now losing it, and rightfully so, because they committed fraud. So here's what they announced over from the DOJ website. Record 25 denaturalizations now happening. And they give us a summary as usual. We'll hit the highlights here. But we've got a Pakistani, somebody called Zia Badi, age 59, now beginning to be denaturalized, saying he should be denaturalized because he illegally came into the country, married a U.S. citizen, sought permanent residence, then changed his name after he was ordered removed, concealed the fact that he used a fake ID, and then tried to get full status. That's called false testimony. You lied, committed perjury, and so now you procured your naturalization in violation of law. Time to go. This woman, Tatiana, from Moldova, 46 years old, and sexual abuse of a child. Wow, before she became a citizen out in Florida. She entered the U.S. in 2005, became naturalized in 2010. Wow, 5 years. In 2021, she was charged with several counts related to a business selling images and videos. Wow, great. Good job naturalizing her. In criminal proceedings, she admitted this. And then in 2022, she was convicted of conspiracy to commit money laundering. Wow. The U.S. then also alleges the court should issue an order revoking her naturalization because she's a child PDF file. Similarly, we've got India, Narinder Singh, DOJ seeking to remove his citizenship. Singh used two identities to come into the U.S. in 1996, naturalized in 2008. 7 counts for misrepresentations and unlawful acts there. We've also got Mexico, age 62, Emigdio Sanchez. This guy was arrested after he beat and choked his wife. He beat his wife so severely that she was hospitalized. He was arrested for this violent assault the following day and pled guilty to that of an aggravated crime. But then in 1998, when he was actually becoming naturalized, they asked him, "Hey, Mr. Sanchez, have you ever been convicted of a crime?" He said, "No." Me? No. Sanchez and his violent assault upon his wife rendered him ineligible to naturalize. He did not disclose that criminal conduct, and so we're seeking to denaturalize him. This person, Luisa from Colombia, 54. Similarly, saying this person came in, got married, had no intention of establishing a marital relationship with this man. Then in 2003, married another dude after failing to divorce the first guy. And at no point during her proceedings for naturalization did she disclose this at all. So now we are seeking to denaturalize her. This person from Nigeria, Jonathan is the first name, Omoro Gieva Obosahan. Same thing on denaturalization. A native of Nigeria became naturalized under the name Jonathan, although he had previously been ordered to be deported. Did not disclose that his real name was actually Tanosa Joe Igbidion, or that other person, him, actually had a removal order, and so he lied as well. We've got Liberia, Enos Fong Corti. Came in here, immigrated as the unmarried child of a citizen, However, Cordy was married and ineligible to immigrate under the status. So Cordy lied about his marital status to immigration officials to hide his ineligibility. Falsely claimed that he never lied. Turns out he did, so he's got to go as well. We've got Yetunde Foleki Oweniyi from Nigeria, age 56, another native of Nigeria. She adopted the identity of someone else and entered into a sham marriage, Folaki Rosemary Thomas. She was already married to another Nigerian. They had a sham marriage. They concealed her identity. They gave her a green card anyways. Then in 2014, she was convicted for passport fraud after fingerprint checks said that she's not actually her. 7-count civil complaint saying sham marriage, bunch of false misrepresentations, and so she's got to go. Another one from Pakistan, Mohd Wasif. Came in, multiple identities, and applied for permanent residence under a fake ID, false information. They caught him. He concealed who he was, and he's got to go. Ghana, Esther. This person stole the identity of a U.S. citizen, and as a result of her husband's identity theft and her non-disclosure of her true identity, she got naturalized. But she wasn't allowed to be here, so naturalization by fraud. Here's a good one from Jamaica, Dwayne Robinson. Shot at and attempted to murder another man. Got a conviction for attempted first-degree murder and assault with a deadly weapon with intent to kill. While awaiting trial, he was discharged from the Army, had earlier obtained U.S. citizen on the basis of his military service, but because he was discharged and tried to kill a guy, he's done as well. Yi Li from Taiwan. This person, Li, conspired to exploit U.S. immigration laws by uniting U.S. citizens with alien beneficiaries in sham marriages. He was running a mill. He would take payment to schedule U.S. citizen co-conspirators and coached participants through the process, marriage fraud, and he turned it into like a coaching business. So testified under oath, misrepresented what he had done. Another one from Ghana, Eddie Jones Appa. Same thing, already been deported, changed his identity. Mexico, age 80, Jose. He came in. Oh, and that's an assault of a minor of the bad variety. He had committed assault of a child in violation of Texas law, pleaded guilty to those things, was supposed to show good moral character, didn't, made a bunch of false statements, and lied in the process. Age 72, Vivian. And there's a bunch of them here. Nigeria, she said that she had never committed any crimes, but she did. Used a false passport, concealed all of that. This guy, Jose, naturalized U.S. citizen, abused his minor stepdaughter, afuera to him. He got 16 years imprisonment. Francois from Cameroon. Another abuse of a minor stepdaughter from age of 10 to age of 16. Convicted of multiple counts, never disclosed any of that. We waived him in. Mustafa Jordan committed fraud, fraudulently obtaining credit cards, took a guilty plea, 25 months in prison, naturalized him anyway. Cuba, 29, Jairo Javier, aggravated identity theft. And he would obtain envelopes and parcels from the Postal Service and then steal the checks from inside. He obtained nearly $175,000 from mail fraud. Another one, Carlos. Criminal acts for abuse of a minor. 1. Naturalized via military service, but then had CP on his computer and was a PDF file. Cantave from Haiti. This person convicted in Florida of battery of a child over 12 years old, but less than 18. Horrific. Got naturalized anyways. Ahmad is age 82. And so some of these people are some senior citizens out there. 64 criminal violations, 30 counts practicing medicine without a license, 30 counts grand theft, perjury, forgery, and more. 6 years prison, and he's on his way out. El Salvador, we've got this person, another abuse of a minor. And then lastly, Manuel, and indecency with a child. Wow. A lot of really disgusting amigos out there. So they're all on their way out. U.S. now seeking to denaturalize all of them. And good riddance to them. Okay, we've already got our own problems in the United States. We don't need to import people and then make them citizens so they can do this stuff here. So time for them to go. Marsha Blackburn was out and she's explaining, if you are one of these disgusting criminals, we're going to find you and we're going to remove you. Here's the great senator from Tennessee.
If you are a gang, if you are a cartel, and you are in our state trafficking drugs and children, if you are grooming these kids online, we are going to find you, we're going to apprehend you, we will convict you, we will deport you, but we are not going to put up with this.
That's right. We don't need any of that activity here in the United States. And so we see some real ramping up of efforts across the board. We've got ankle monitors on the Haitians. We've got immigration attorneys melting down. We've got leftist lunatics. I presume some of these people are paid, but maybe not, who are out there saying we want more of this in our communities. We'd like more child abusers here. We've got numbers ramping up and to the right, slowly but surely on the deportations. We've got trucking licenses canceled for people who can't read and write English. We've now got more denaturalizations happening across the board. And Marsha Blackburn is saying we're coming for you. So good news everywhere. We'll see what happens with the Haitians, whether there's a lawsuit. I would expect a lawsuit, somebody saying you can't put ankle monitors on these people. But we'll continue to cover this. And hopefully ankle monitors are flying off the shelves for every non-citizen who has no more status here. They've got options. We were very gracious for a long time in America, but they took advantage of that. Okay, our own government helped facilitate that. And so now we can't deal with that anymore. We could have had a reasonable immigration system 50 years ago, but they perverted it, they destroyed it, and now we've been invaded. So as a nation, if we want to survive, we have to continue on with some aggressive maneuvers, and it's time for them to go home. So we're going to be here to continue to cover this. Thank you for joining and subscribing as we do. All right, now we got some election news on the day, and then we'll hear from you and see what you have to say about all of this and more. Just coming back to Arizona. Arizona's secretary now sued for trying to rig the election, doing what the other secretaries in blue states like California are doing, and trying to change the terms on the ballot, to change the language so it's more beneficial for them to dissuade voters for voting in favor of election integrity amendments. This, of course, is now being filed against Adrian Fontes, and it's brought by the America First Legal Foundation. And we know we've covered a prior case like this when they're trying to amend California's constitution to check IDs. They change the language to make it a lot more disgusting to the average voter. It goes from election integrity reform to something like you're going to be banned from democracy. Over exaggerating the change there, but it's essentially that. I don't want to be banned from participating in democracy, although you might like to improve election integrity. So they invert it so that you vote no, get scared away, and now we've got another lawsuit that is being filed. And so inside of this, I wanted to scroll down and just kind of read from the facts portion of this before we dive in, because this is what the bill is about in Arizona. And this guy, state representative called Alexander Collodin, has now won and beaten out the other primary opponents to be the challenger to Adrian Fontes. And he introduced a bill called HCR 2001. It's about citizenship, ID, contributions, and early voting. Arizona's House passed it. The Senate passed it. Then they said, we want to put this on the ballot for the voters to become a constitutional amendment. Now, this is what it does. It's called Prop 144 in Arizona. Look how common sense all of this is. In addition to any other qualifications under the Constitution, they say this: only citizens may register to vote in Arizona elections. Wow. Also, this is huge. Foreign nationals may not contribute or spend money on anything to influence Arizona elections. So no foreign cash coming in. Every voter must show valid government-issued proof of ID when casting a ballot. either in person or by mail. So that's mail-in voter ID as well. Arizona elections shall be decided solely by the votes of eligible citizens. And to prevent delays and make sure our elections are accurate, on election day, all voters shall be provided the option to have their ballot tabulated at their voting location. So you cast it, it counts. Now, the people and the legislature may enact laws governing elections, including early voting and mail, and do that if they're rationally connected to these other interests. There's a provision on severability. There's a provision on funding. All of this would take effect after January 1, 2028. And they call it the Fast, Accurate, Secure, Transparent Election Results Act, or the Fast Election Results Act. All of that pretty clear on what it does. Now, here's the actual argument from these plaintiffs who are suing Adrian Fontes and Chris Mays, the Arizona Attorney General, saying, all right, now we're in court here, and we need to accelerate this to correct the unlawful official ballot language that Adrian has put on there. As we know, in Arizona, the legislature may refer constitutional amendments to the people. And what happens is the secretary needs to draft two things related to that. One, of course, is the title. What are they going to call it? They also have to fill in a yes or no, essentially. They need a brief phrase. Do you vote yes for this or do you vote no? Here's the description. So a title and a description is what Adrian needs to write. Now, he's not allowed to editorialize this. He needs to be unbiased when actually creating this. This happened. Prop 144 is an election integrity measure, and it would amend the Arizona Constitution to do what we just read. But then what happened is the secretary published language to title and describe the bill in a way that is illegal in three different ways. One, the secretary's language omits the lead provisions entirely. Okay, he makes it about something that it really isn't. Under this provision, Section 19 says only citizens may register and vote, and that Arizona elections are only decided by eligible voters. Now, neither the title nor any of the numbered clauses of the yes vote statement mention that at all. They don't even talk about citizenship, even though that's really the whole point of the bill. Second, the yes vote statement, the description, appends an argument to the foreign money provision and adds something in there that isn't, saying this is similar to prohibitions that already exist in federal law. In other words, we don't really need it. Now, that editorial is nowhere in the text, and it misleadingly suggests to voters that this is all redundant. So the key feature about citizens actually voting gets deleted, and something else saying we already have this, there's already rules about that, gets added, even though it's not in there. Now, this prohibition is limited to candidate contributions. And by contrast, in Arizona, this would read and reach all influence everywhere. So no foreign cash coming in for PACs or anything, basically anything. So you're not allowed to do that. Okay, a description of a ballot measure fails when it is objectively false or when it's misleading or when it fails to refer to the actual law. And so time is short here. We need this updated before the ballots are printed and sent out to the voters. So we're suing. We've got the people suing. Guy called Dennis, shout out, qualified elector in Arizona. Shout out to Leslie White out there in Arizona. They're going to vote yes on this thing. And so is Sharman Ruff. All of them want to vote yes, suing Adrian Fontes and Chris Mays. Now, this is a special action, so we're kind of accelerating and bypassing some of the standard procedures, saying we've got a bunch of standing. We know what the legal duties are. The secretary basically needs to fill these things out so the voters can come in and say, yes, I vote yes, it has the effect of this. I vote no, it has the effect of that. There are legal standards. We'll fast forward through all of that. We got the facts on this one. And the Constitution doesn't say anything about citizenship as it exists, which is why we're going to amend it and include it. But Fontes, in his sneaky little way, he came out, and then on July 9th, the Legislative Council met and they approved their pamphlets. And they changed some things and removed things and then added others. On July 23rd, the secretary published the official ballot format. And on information and belief, Fontes approved the title and the description. Here's what he put in there. And you can see it reads, title requires all voters, including voters who vote by mail, to show government-issued ID to vote in each election, omitting citizenship completely. Makes other changes to election administration and campaign finance prohibitions, saying a yes vote amends the Constitution to require voters to show proof of ID, even by mail, changes proof of ID requirements, requires election officials to count where you cast your ballot, prohibit foreign nationals from contributing money, similar to prohibitions that already exist, creates a new standard for judicial review, which make it harder to challenge election laws, which that's a little bit of bias in there, and editorializing, and require the legislature to appropriate money. Now, in a radio interview, Adrian came out and he was mad about this. He said on an interview program, February 19, 2026, he said, I've read that legislation. I know what it opens the door to. He says that the advocates behind Prop 144 rely on a boogeyman they've created out of all these illegal voters. And I want to stop. I want to just the nonsense and the BS we keep hearing from these folks that want to limit your right to vote. Similarly, he headlined a public forum in February. Secretary also published and supported the Free, Fair, and Secure Elections Act, which was a competing act, even though that failed to qualify for the ballot. So since he made all these efforts, like he hates this bill, so he can't beat it, so he just changes it. So then he drafted and published the language that's now being challenged. He did so while serving as a candidate for re-election for the same election on which this ballot measure will appear. Now, the person who sponsored this is also now challenging him. Alexander Collodin is going to run to beat Fontes. Plaintiffs do not contend that his political interests disqualify him from this. We just say that he needs to write a correct title. Now, the title here identifies one provision specifically and then lumps everything else into that. Doesn't talk about citizenship, doesn't talk about voter eligibility, which presumably are very popular. That requires registering and voting. And all of that is kind of eliminated out. A voter who reads every word of the language will never learn that this would add citizenship to the Constitution. Unlike the descriptive title, the yes vote contains no catch-all whatsoever. Instead, its 6 numbered clauses purport to be an exhaustive enumeration of the prop, but citizenship is not in there. So the omission is not a function of space. They've got plenty of room. They could add more in there and just put the word citizenship in there. But he knows that that may be a little bit too attractive to Arizonans who've been infiltrated by Mexico and many other countries. So they wanted to keep that out. The omissions cannot be excused because the theory fails. The title's obligation does not turn on a novelty. The secretary has to comply with the principal provisions of the measure under the law. And one of the principal provisions is citizenship. Then he adds in prohibitions under federal law already exist. That gloss diminishes Prop 144 and undermines its actual effectiveness. So he can't do that. There needs to be an impartial analysis here. And the description has to include the main components of what's actually in the prop. But the comparison is also inaccurate. The federal foreign prohibition is limited to contributions and expenditures, but they can make a bunch of contributions to other areas. And because the federal law prohibits this and we're seeking to prohibit that, they can't conflate the two. By contrast, in Arizona, anything that influences an Arizona election, that also encompasses ballot measure elections, not just a particular candidate. So it's much broader and more protective. And similarly, he says that it creates a new standard for judicial review. And it doesn't. It doesn't say that at all. It doesn't say new legal standard at all. It affirmatively authorizes both the people and the legislature to enact laws governing these things, as long as they're rationally related to a legitimate state interest. And so the other interpretations are just not accurate, and it's going to make it harder for the voter to know what they're voting for. And so since this is happening quickly, we need immediate relief on this. They didn't correct any defects, and this is about to go to the printer. So corrected language can be prepared immediately. We're saying that they are violating Arizona law by changing the language to water it down and to make it less attractive. The brief phrase was inaccurate. There is a discretionary duty on how they are to create these titles and these descriptions. They need to actually include the main substance. Failing to perform this is illegal and non-compliant. And so we want a declaratory judgment as well. So here's ultimately what they're asking for. Issue an order to show cause with expedited response date and hearings. Declare that the current title violates Arizona law, fails to summarize the principal provision, keeps out the citizenship requirement. It omits essential language that is in the prop. Issue a special action relief and follow what's in the prop. Direct the Attorney General to correct the language on an expedited basis. Put it on their website. Stop them from transmitting illegitimate ballots and give us attorney's fees as necessary. Signed here by James K. Rogers from America First Legal. And we're happy to see the Republicans playing on this game now. So a couple of exhibits here on what Fontes actually created. This is the actual resolution. And so the cheaters will continue everywhere you look. Adrian is just another piece of the puzzle. Now, where other cheaters exist are in Michigan. Jocelyn Benson, perhaps one of the biggest secretaries, who likes to pervert the election rules in any way she can. And we got some big primaries happening, and election monitors are going to be sent from the DOJ to monitor the polls. In an announcement from the DOJ, the Civil Rights Division says, our primary monitoring efforts continue today as we seek to ensure fair and free elections nationwide. Harmeet explains the DOJ is devoting extensive resources to ensure uniform and non-discriminatory monitoring across the board. We're going to Detroit. We're going to Hamtramck. We're going to Lansing. We're going to East Lansing. And we're going to ensure that there's no fraud going on. There's no problems. We're available. If you have any complaints, send them to the voting section. And so if you're voting in Michigan and you see anything strange out there, this is the email to use, vem@usdoj.gov. Send them what you're seeing so they can fix it. Now, elsewhere, we're asking ourselves, couldn't the SAVE Act fix a lot of this? John Thune came out after AG Todd Blanche got confirmed, or at least pushed out of the Judiciary Committee to reach the full Senate. And John Thune was out saying, you know what we're going to do? We're just going to make sure the Democrats are anchored in with their vote and make them own it, as though that's a legitimate strategy. Here's John Thune, the Senate Majority Leader.
He says he wants you to stay in session, wants you to pass the Save America Act.
Well, I think the president, I've heard from a couple times this morning on issues that he cares about. I wouldn't say I'm isolated, no. I mean, I've been very clear about the prospects for the Save America Act. And the only thing I've said all along is we have voted on the Save America Act 5 times. It was the pending business on the floor of the Senate for over 2 weeks. And I am willing to, in any way possible, get that across the finish line if there is a path to do it. But there are 2 realities and 2 facts you have to deal with. And the first is there are no Democrats who are going to vote for this. All 47 voted against the SAVE Act 5 times. So let's make this an issue in the campaign. How about we go out and turn our fire on Democrats and make it about them opposing the SAVE Act?
He's trying to fire on you.
So we're not, that's the point. So we're not getting any Democrats. The second thing is we are not getting rid of the legislative filibuster. The votes aren't there to do that. I've made it abundantly clear many, many times. And it seems to me some days that I'm the only one here who can count to 50 in this town, but we don't have the votes to get rid of the filibuster, and we aren't flipping 10 Democrats to vote for the Save America Act. So those 2 realities are there. Now, is there somewhere in here with budget reconciliation that we can do pieces of the Save America Act, or at least in a fiscal way deal with funding for some of those things? Maybe, and we'll see what the draft will bear on that. We're having conversations, as you know, right now about that proposition. So we'll keep you posted.
Okay, so John Thune just can't do anything. So we're just going to blame the Democrats and say, see, they're not passing this. The problem with that strategy is the Democrats are perfectly okay with that. Here is Raphael Warnock, and just a little taste of this. He posted a full 5-minute video on the SAVE Act, and he's explaining a bunch of lies about the actual act itself and using this as a campaign tool. So saying you're going to harm the Democratic Party by saying, look how shameful they are for not passing the SAVE Act, it's not shameful to them. It's a victory. They're like heroes for protecting democracy and voting rights because John Thune and the Republican Party has done such a horrific job of articulating why we need this. Even if John couldn't get it through and didn't actually have the votes in the Senate and he's being legitimate about trying hard to go get him and whatever, actually went and threatened everybody to say, we're not going to give you a dime. Lisa Murkowski, Susan Collins, if you win, you don't get 1 cent from us if you do not get on board with the SAVE Act. Has he done that? No, of course not. But he'll say, I worked hard and I can't find the votes. It's very difficult here being the Senate Majority Leader. But if he actually had tried that and was actually articulate out there in front of the media, explaining why we need it, then maybe some of these lies would not be able to take hold. Here's just a snippet of this from Raphael, one of the senators, who's the beneficiary of not having the SAVE Act.
In our federal elections, the law is clear and it is unequivocal. It is exceedingly rare for non-citizens to register to vote, let alone try to vote. A process.
There were 400 of them that you guys admitted to in New Jersey from Mikey Sherrill. 400. And there were now confirmed, officially admitted by Virginia and New Jersey, about 13,000 of them that actually registered. So this exceedingly rare thing is a lie.
Exists right now to prevent it. And there are consequences, steep consequences, when it does happen. Think about it.
No, there isn't. There are 400 people who literally voted in elections, and the blue governor called Mikey is protecting them. So there are no consequences at all.
If you are an undocumented person living in the shadows, would you really want to risk jail, deportation, or both in order to vote?
Yeah, they have. They've done it 400 times. According to your governor, Mikey Sherrill in New Jersey, a blue governor. So they do it repeatedly. And nobody gets prosecuted for it. Until very recently, only a handful have. If you can even catch them, since the blue states don't cooperate at all.
Truly, it's not a thing, and for good reason. The SAVE Act is a piece of legislation in search of a problem that does not exist.
It exists. Your own blue governors are admitting it. So that's what I'm talking about. The Democrats are out front and center saying stuff like this, and it captures the field. It's like in a football game. They're driving one direction. You need the Republicans to drive back the other direction, and they don't. John Thune just comes out. He says, I had to vote. I had to be a leader. And it's honestly pathetic. So here's what Andy Ogles said about this. He said, there are zero good reason for John Thune and his failure to bring the Save America Act on the floor. This is how we get the votes. We debate it. Thune can either do the right thing or he can resign. Here is Andy Ogles explaining this.
I would say we're a lot frustrated, quite frankly. Senator Thune has the opportunity to put this on the House floor. They can do the talking filibuster. Look, in 1964, the Civil Rights Act was passed because of the talking filibuster. 1965, the Voting Rights Act was passed because of the talking filibuster. The Dodd-Frank bill was passed because of the talking filibuster. So there's a precedent here when you have monumental transformative pieces of legislation for the Senate to use this procedural maneuver to get it done. So, John Thune, do your job, get it done, or get out of the way.
President Trump has weighed in a lot on this. What is the latest we're hearing from him and what he wants the Senate to do?
he's frustrated just like I am, just like the American people are, that they see the Senate not doing their job. And look, this isn't a controversial issue. When it comes to Save America, again, over 80% of Americans say, let's get it done. So there's really no excuse for John Thune at all.
Yeah, and what are the arguments being made from Republicans for not moving forward? I know our listeners are frustrated. What are they saying?
Ours too,
to be
man,
honest with you, I have not heard a good answer from the Senate as to why they're not moving it, aside from the fact that John Thune has said he doesn't have the votes. Well,
There's
guess
no
what?
reason.
You're the leader. Bring it up, put it on the Senate floor, call a vote, and let everybody go on record. And once that's been done, do the talking filibuster. Like I said, you have historical precedent to get it done. He has a path forward. He's simply choosing not to do it. And again, the American people rightfully should be frustrated by that.
We are frustrated. That guy's listeners are frustrated. Our friends here are frustrated. And meanwhile, this was just posted 8 hours ago. This is from Warnock on August 4th, today. They make these whole propaganda videos. He goes on for 5 friggin' minutes about this, talking about how it's not a problem at all. And it's like a win. If they can beat the Save America Act, they win. It's not a loss. It's not an albatross around their neck, because for their party, for the power brokers, the people who actually engineer the outcomes of the elections, this would be a devastating defeat. And that's why they're fighting so hard at every state level to try to prevent any integrity reforms from happening. They're changing the language in Arizona. They're perverting the titles in California. They're doing limited hangouts in New Jersey and Virginia. And the whole thing's a scam. Warnock knows that Mikey just admitted it. She held a whole press conference about it, but will still, as a preacher, come out and be very dishonest about what's happening out there to his constituents in a shameful display. But Andy Ogles is right. John Thune needs to put up or shut up, get out of the way, because currently we need a better explanation other than we just don't have the votes. We need a clear, articulated fact. At least Lisa Murkowski came out and made up something about rural voters, many of whom I would bet want to pass the Save America Act. But at least she had a reason. It's going to disenfranchise a couple of people out in the rural areas. It's a big state up there. Yeah. Because she wants the current system that keeps getting her elected to remain in effect in perpetuity, so she continues to be reelected, and doesn't want anything that might threaten that. So we're going to keep our eye on this. Shout out to our friends at America First Legal for suing and for holding Adrian Fontes accountable. We'll see what comes next on this one. We've got primaries coming up tonight and in the future, and we'll have more mistruths from the Democrats. We'll keep our eye on all of it. Thank you for joining and subscribing as we do. All right, my friends, it has been a beautiful and a lovely stream. I hope your day was amazing. We had a great couple of stories today. We talked about these Obama and Biden judges, one of whom is melting down. We've got articles of impeachment now submitted against Allison D. Burroughs, who's very unhappy that the Somalis had their TPS canceled. She's the one presiding over this case. We saw the DOJ man just unleashed on her, saying, you keep extending your stays, you're subverting the actual power of the executive branch, and they dropped a doozy. It was a great read. And then she responded and she said, you know, this is something that is a shameful cruelty to the Somalians for not giving them any notice that TPS has been canceled. Okay, so she's unhappy about it, but she basically reversed herself. She said a briefing that was supposed to be 6 weeks out to extend the TPS status here. And then that just got canceled, whittled way down to now August 5th and August 6th, which is tomorrow and Thursday. So we're going to have some good decisions on this. We're going to keep our eye on this one. We also heard from James Percival, the guy behind this. We had impeachment resolutions against Allison Burroughs, the judge we just talked about. And then the Florida AG is also unleashing on Abudu. She is an 11th Circuit judge and apparently was one of the senior attorneys over there at the SPLC which was paying the KKK, and one of their executives was sleeping with the NIZI. And now they've been criminally charged in federal court. Then we talked about the Haitians. They've got ankle monitors on now, some of them. Very unhappy about this. Immigration attorneys are saying that this is causing them fear and trepidation, and they can't work anymore. Even though they can't work anymore because they have no work authorization. Got a couple of updates there. Got some lunatics protesting outside. We've got deportations ramping up. We have trucker licenses for non-citizens who can't read or write or speak it in English, all being canceled. We saw denaturalizations happening across the board. Bunch of PDF files now getting their citizenship stripped. And Marsha Blackburn says, we're coming for you. Then lastly, the lawsuit against the Arizona secretary for changing and perverting the ballot language as they are like to do. We also saw DOJ deploying poll watchers in Michigan, John Thune being useless, Warnock lying through his teeth, and Ogles saying enough of this crap already. And so now, my friends, it is time to hear from you. Thank you for being here. Hopefully you accomplished every single thing you set your mind to today. We're glad that you're here and with us. If you're voting tonight and you're in line, stay in line. Don't get out of line until you get your vote in, because we got to win some of these primaries. We'll go through some of the results maybe tomorrow morning. But let's see what else we got cooking today. We got some new members coming in as well, man. Thank you for these. What a beautiful day. Hey, Michelle, good to see you. So, Michelle, I think you squeezed this one in yesterday. We missed it yesterday. Yay for baby G. Man, thank you, Michelle. We had a couple of good baby appointments today. Still no baby out yet. Still, refusing to exit. I have to go get a warrant or something. But baby still inside. Although good movement. We had 2 appointments today. We met with our midwives and we met with an ultrasound just to make sure baby's okay. We did one of the tests. If you know what I'm talking about, baby scored 8 out of 8, no distress at all. Just very comfortable in there. So not wanting to come out, but Alexis is doing good. She's resting, getting ready for the big day. And so hopefully that comes very soon. Should probably be in the next couple days or so. So Michelle, thank you for that. And thank you for being a member. Hey, Afuera, great to have you. What's up, Slimmer Stubby? Yeah, the worst part of the language change out here in California is that local news isn't covering it at all. So the general public isn't even going to be aware of it. Yeah, and Slimmer, it was worse in California. What we got here in Arizona was a little bit more, I would say a little less aggressive. And California was very aggressive. I forget the specific language, but it was something like prohibit, it prohibits you from voting unless you present government ID or something. And in reality, that's not what it says. That's not what the bill does. It's actually, you can vote. You just have to validate who you are even after you vote. So it's not like disenfranchising you. But yeah, they don't want to cover it because if they cover it, then people will be wise to the scam. So they'd rather you just go in, read the language and say, oh, this sounds awful. I'm going to vote no. Rick D, what's up? Hey, Rob, apparently my name has been put on a monument in DC as part of America 250. If you enter my name at this link, monument250usaa360.com, it will give you a code you can give to the staff and they will take you to my name. Get out of here. That's incredible, man. All right, we're going to go over there and check that out. We may have to make a video about that, Rick D. That's amazing, dude. Congratulations on that. How cool is that? Thank you for your service to our country. So amazing. Honoring James R. Donor in the house, AKA Rick D. It should say Rick D. Honoring Rick D on there. Rick D in the house. The National Military Monument. Super cool, man. All right, we're going to go check it out, make a video. Hey, Lady Lind, what's up? Thank you for the GOAT trophy in the house. Cindy, thank you for the Unk alert in the house. Very cool. We appreciate you both. Thanks for sending gifts in here on the stream. Hey, Dark Rogue. What's up, Dark Rogue? Man, bringing in 20 new members today. We had an extra early members only morning stream. We talked about New York, how they got slapped down. They lost the big one on the ice masks and the identification card. And they have not appealed it yet, but we read through the decision. They lose. They won a little bit on the contract claim, but we read through the whole thing. Good decision, and I think rightfully handed down. So that was the big one that we talked about this morning. Also looked at some election polls and things like that. We had a good time. So members, check that out. Otherwise, we'll be back tomorrow at the regular time, usual schedule. Dark Rogue, bring it in. Thank you, Dark, for doing this. Being Inquisitive, or Be Inquisitive. Monkey Spank Snitchinator, welcome. Foster Cathead, what's up, Ray? We got Mimi, Curtis Caruth, Dilizara Jabbery. Sorry about that, Dilizara. We got Josh Anader, what's up? K. Cockenburr, welcome. Joshua, what's up? Natalie Herman, what's up? Ja Tiger. We got None Your Business, Silicon Player. Carla Shrum, Matt R, what's up? Marco Cars, M22, Pills Jr., and Kathy Weirley. Man, I was struggling on those. What's going on? So thank you, Dark Rogue, for bringing in 20 new member, man. That's amazing. We'll see everybody in the morning. We'll have a great stream tomorrow morning as well. Rick D. Hey, this one, a Texas federal judge has denaturalized a migrant who lied. Let's go. Yeah, that's great. And we just had like another 20 of them that we read through today that I think will probably be denaturalized. This guy's criminal conduct, he illegally procured his citizenship and now it's been revoked. So the ones that we just talked about were just filed. They have not come to a final conclusion, but eventually they will. And a lot of them have been being granted because it's just obvious. Spuds. So, hey, just tell the Haitians that they are high-tech Air Jordans and they'll slap them on themselves. Yeah. Yeah. Or remember those shoes that used to have like the lights in the bottom? Maybe they could just do something like that. Like when you bang your foot, the ankle monitor just lights up. You're like, wow, that's so cool. I have to have one. Mom, can I please? Sue Tangle. What's up, Sue? Welcome aboard. Thank you for signing up to become a member. We'll see you tomorrow morning on the member stream and hopefully see you. Check out the one from this morning. King of Biltong, what's going on? Get your meats, my friend. Enjoy your Biltong USA order? Question. Of course you did. Please leave a review when placing your next order at biltongusa.com. It helps others find us and it means a lot to our small business. Use code Robert. You'll save 10% off and get that meat delivered right to your door and you're going to love it. King of Biltong, hopefully it's flying off the shelves. Hey, Dark Rogue. Okay, over under on Janine getting fired because she chose not to prosecute the reflecting pool cutter. Yeah, I don't know, man. Dark Rogue, it's a good question. How do you do an over under on that? You know, was it time? Like she's got 30 days left. She'll be gone eventually. So you kind of presume it. Is it going to be in less than 6 months or over 6 months before Janine's out? Maybe the best way to do it, over 6 months or under 6 months. But I think, I think she's in some reflecting pool water. I was going to say hot water, but we'll stay on theme. But we played a little bit of that this morning, Dark Rogue. I'm not sure if you missed it. We were extra early, but we played a little bit of Trump's. He went on for like 7 minutes about it. He was not happy about that. He explained the whole thing. A lot of times it's very, just a couple of quick comments on a topic, but he was like 7 minutes. Like, let me explain everything. Dang. So we'll ultimately see. I think that if I had to, she might be able to save it, but maybe not. Maybe not. I mean, what else has really happened out of the DC District Court? Has Janine been driving forward on January 6th, investigations or Comey or any of these other people? It's like the big win that we've gotten out of DC has been the reflecting pool charge. So would kind of like to see some more energy out of there one way or another. You know what I mean? Dark Rogue, thank you for the nice dono. Holly, what's up? My blood is boiling today, especially with those being denaturalized with the fake IDs in the age of many. Yeah, want to bet getting SSI and Medicaid? Probably. Gurr, are these illegals going through that new court? No, not yet. But that new court does have a new website. It looks good. We were going to go through it. We may save that for tomorrow. But they redid their website. They got a bunch of new stuff that was filed, all very short. Most of it's under seal, which is why we can't Spent a lot of time on it because it's just like a page. But yeah, I mean, I think they're getting a lot of benefits. We're subsidizing their existence. And somebody emailed me a great comment. They said, in that birth tourism hospital, they were billing like $4,000, $5,000 for a birth. The total cost is probably a lot more significant than that to the actual hospital, but they just bill. So they charge the illegal coming in to drop their baby off. Then they just go get reimbursed from Homeland for the difference, for Health and Human Services for the difference. So like we help to subsidize the anchor babies is what somebody sent to me. They said, no, it's actually much higher cost than that. I said, oh, well, that makes sense. So that's great. So we're facilitating anchor babies, paying for it. Great. So, and thank you, Holly, for that. Yeah, these are blood boiling stories, but that's good. That means you're alive. It means you're living. Defective Potato. I'd love it if the motion said prosecution will send it to Congress for use in official impeachment proceedings due to the judge's bad faith actions. Yeah, that's not a bad idea too. Yeah, and we're going to refer you. How about that? You're going to refer us, we're referring you. And we're taking it up to the Court of Appeals, and we're sending it to Jim Jordan so that he can file it in a cabinet somewhere and it can rot. But you get the point. Anyways, thank you, Defective Potato. It'd be nice, man, if we had a useful Congress, then they could take a lot of these complaints and do something with it. If the Republicans governed like the Democrats govern, if they knew how to actually exercise power when they have it, we'd see some fun action like that, but we don't. Kimberly, what's up? Hey, thank you, Kimberly, for the Unk Alert in the house. Thank you for the gift, Kimberly. Unk Alert in the house. What's up, Mock Schnell? Good to see you, Mock Schnell. Shout out Mock Schnell for bringing in 10 new friends. Look who's here. Johnny, what's up? Metarax. We got Ray, 911 Nicole TCO, Joe Mimo. What's up, Quinn? Blue Star, Jeff Walker, Debbie McCarthy, and Alyssa K. Welcome. We'll see everybody in the morning. Join us 10 a.m. Eastern time, and we'll have a tremendous stream. What's up, Chris? And thank you, Mock Schnell, for bringing him in. Hey, Chris Kinsey, I have a knack for numbers. That's good, I don't. When the Pennsylvania voters were purged, the number is eerily close to the number of inmates in the state prison. Wow. That's curious, Chris. Yeah, there are all sorts of issues, of course, going on with voter registration. And Dr. Janice Johnson, who we had on the show here some time ago, she explained that in Georgia, there was voter registration numbers that are higher than the population. Okay, more voters registered than there are people living in the county by a significant margin. How's that happen? Thank you, Chris. What's up, Taco Woman Sandy Ravage? What's up? The neocons in the Senate want to tank MAGA. I think that's probably true. I think there's a lot of, so-called conservatives or MAGA-aligned people who actually hate Trump. They don't want him to succeed. They never wanted him to succeed. They endorsed, Ron DeSantis at the beginning. And I liked Ron. I said the whole time, I said, we have to hug each other out after this is over. We supported Trump. There was a bunch of people who supported Ron. We didn't. They did. We said, okay, after you guys lose, we still have to get in here. We have to hug it out. Okay. And love you up, get together because we got to win. But I still think that their disdain for Trump is still carried over. They're just kind of like, anti-Trumpers in hiding. And a lot of that goes all the way back to 2016. There were many people who were like, massively in favor of Ted Cruz. And then all of a sudden, like, oh, okay, I like Trump now. All right. Then Trump gets out. Then in 2024, like, we like DeSantis again. Okay. But we love Trump now. It's like, okay, you actually were opposed to him twice in 2 different elections. And also many of them just don't want to criticize Trump. So they just go kind of stealth. And they don't want to criticize Trump. So then they come out and they criticize, other people like J.D. Vance. They say J.D. Vance is responsible for all of this. He's like, he's not the president. Trump's the president. So yeah, there's weird stuff going on. And I think they're kind of biding their time until it's over. But it's not good. Yeah. And, those people should identify themselves. What's up, one old guy? Thune the Goonie in the house. Thank you, Thune the Goonie, for not doing anything. One old guy says, Gyno Rhino wants the both houses to flip so Trump is stopped. Yeah, and that would be a disaster. If we lose the Senate, all of our noms are totally dead. We don't get any judges. We don't get any really appointments to key positions if they control that. So we can't let that happen. We got to keep both houses and win. What's up, psychological projectionist? Force reps to explain why they won't vote for the SAVE Act. I completely agree. We don't have a lot of details on that. We just only essentially have the explanation from Murkowski, and at least she gave us a reason. I didn't think it was a good reason, but she gave us a reason. It's the rural voters, but the rest of them, it's just like, well, what is it? It's too difficult to go get ID or to verify citizenship. What is it? K-Bean, what's up? Good to see you, K-Bean, mod extraordinaire. Says, Rob, tell baby G that his TPS status has expired. 100% true. And I like how you use the pronoun his, as though, maybe that's what it will be. But yeah, that's exactly right. And honestly, if this kid doesn't come out soon, I may go get an ankle monitor and just get in there, and just put it in there. Yeah, it's pretty funny. Yeah, it's pretty funny. Warrants, injunctions, whatever it takes to go get this little creature on out of there. And Alexis and I were laughing on the way home. We were coming back from an appointment. And she's like, yeah, we're going to have a baby soon. And I said something like, yeah, like I'll believe it when I see it, because it's just been like kind of slowly being delayed. She started laughing. She's like, I literally said that to my mom yesterday. I see it when, I'll believe it when I see it. It's like, we keep going to all these appointments. There's a baby in there. It's coming out July 27th. We're like, all right. It didn't clearly come out. So it's like, are you guys just jerking us around? What's going on in there? Where is this kid? Anyways, so thank you, K-Bean. I like it. What's going on? Polly Market, Donut Mind Me says, Janine Pirro out as DC U.S. Attorney by... Okay, so there you go. You got some dates on it. August 6, 10%. August 31, 33%. December 31, 38%. And yeah, so that's curious. If they're going to get rid of her, they're going to probably want to do it quickly, because if the Senate does change hands, then they're not going to be able to get a good appointee in. So they might want to get that done and nominate somebody else, get him Senate confirmed, and get him installed before the Senate changes power. So if it's going to happen, I think it would happen before the next Senate is seated, which I think is, what is that? Is that March or is that January? I think Congress is staggered, right? I don't remember exactly, but sooner rather than later. But also, if she's gone now, then it's going to be based on the reflecting pool. So they'll, there may be some criticism about that. But anyways, so don't mind me. Thank you for the heads up. What's up from this one? Coming in from Just Rhonda. Hey, Robert, Ray Hedrick in the YouTube chat is also on the memorial. Raymond L. Hedrick. Let's go. That's amazing. All right. So if you're on the memorial, you'll have to let me know. So we got Ray Hedrick, and let me download that one and see. Yeah. Okay, cool. So we're going to have to make a trip over there and say what's up to all of our memorial friends that are out there. Awesome. Shout out, Raymond. Thank you for your service, sir. What an amazing honor that is. How cool. Rick D. President Trump is very unpredictable with staff. That doesn't always do what he wants. I think Janine is safe. She does more positive than negative and follows the law. I really wanted her as AG instead of Blanche. That's interesting. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I just want somebody to just crush, okay? Just crush. And I don't know that either one of them ultimately has that, but we'll see. We're going to hold out hope for Blanche. I think what I get from Janine is she's a little bit performative. I mean, I like her. I want her to succeed. I think she's on the right side of a lot of issues. But it can be very performative. Like, she comes out, gives a really, barn burner press conference, but then goes in and then dismisses the actual case. You're like, all right. So, and then Norm Eisen's doing laps. He's like celebrating it. We beat the Trump DOJ. Yeah. Anyways, thank you, Rick D. We want somebody to get in there and crush. Sharpie guy. Hey, in my vocabulary, Rob, I'd like to X Thune as Mark Thune as reckless, worthless, spineless, feckless. Nice. Just a few suggestions to write to Thune. I'm so upset with him. Such a disappointment. Wouldn't you agree, brother? I do. It is very disappointing. Honestly, in both bodies, the lack of ability to accomplish much of anything substantive has really been a bummer. Prayers up for you and Alexis and Baby G. It's a boy. At least I believe he is. Hugs all around to the Watcher fam. Thank you, Sharpie Guy. Great to see you. Thanks for the prayers, my man. We definitely will take them. And it's good to see you. Great words. Hey, Bill Dozer, have the lady do some jumping jacks to yeet that baby on out of there. Yeah, we were saying, I think John McGarvey was saying it. He was talking to Alexa. She was in the chat and was saying, get in the car, go on a bumpy dirt road, and maybe it'll shake that thing loose. And then we got in the metro today to go to one of our appointments, and it didn't shake the baby loose. So we're working on it. Jumping jacks is a good idea. Yeah, maybe it'll, gravity. Use gravity to create some momentum. Rick D says, oh, Rob, really? At her size now? Dude. Quote, believe it when I see it? Question. Yeah, Rick, that's the joke. That's the joke. It's like, obviously there's a baby in there. Baby's moving around. There's heartbeats and all the things. But it's like, yeah. I'll believe it when I see it. Like, that's why I thought it was funny. Apparently I didn't tell the joke well. But that's the joke. It's like, there's obviously, she's like exploding with this child, like bursting at the seams. And it's like, there's nothing even in there. What are they telling us? It doesn't even make any sense. So it was probably a bad delivery, but that's, that was kind of the whole point of the joke. But I'll try again another time. Thank you, Rick. Rob, Officer Gouveia here to deport this baby from the womb. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Knock, knock, knock. This is ICE. It's time for you to go. You have to get out now. Yeah, doing the father thing. Don't make me come in there. Don't make me tell you twice, little baby. Blue Spark, hey, poltergeists are returning to my mama's house. Well, that's not good. Poltergeists? Hopefully not, the mean ones. Well, shout out, prayers up for your mama. Hopefully things are nice. It could be Casper, the friendly ghost, somebody much nicer than the demonic realm of hell or death permeating the lifestyle. Did I miss something? Blue Spark? Okay, hopefully your mom is safe, and maybe you can light some of the, what do you call it? You light the things and you defunkify your house or whatever, or say a prayer, or get an exorcist in the house and take care of that. Blue Spark, thanks for watching on Rumble. We appreciate that. No, Alexis looks beautiful. She looks amazing. And she's ready. She's ready for this baby to come out. But so we're joking about it. We're having fun. And she thought it was funny. And she said, I literally said the same thing, because her mom said, there's a baby coming soon. She's like, oh, is there? Really? Where? When? You guys keep saying that, but it's not coming, Hey, Barry. Hey, happy Tuesday, Rob and Alexis and company. You'll be a great dad. Man, I hope so. Things will happen, and immediately you will not understand what just happened. God is smiling and has an awesome sense of humor. That is true. God does have a good sense of humor. And it's all going to happen fast. Like, we're kind of, complaining about it right now, but it's going to happen fast. And I'm like, that baby's going to come out flying. He's, oh, you wanted me to come out? All right, let's do it. And it's going to come out with a bang, no doubt. So Michael Swisher, hey, people on parole have to pay for their ankle monitor if they don't want to sit in jail. Yeah, and it's expensive, like a monthly fee. We should be making these people pay for their ankle monitor. Yeah, we have existing laws and statutes, and if they would just enforce the laws on the books and throughout our Constitution. Yeah, and it'd be curious to see if one of these people on an ankle monitor goes to vote in an election. What if they show up at a polling place? Like, what are all these Haitians doing at a polling place? This is weird. Hey, Lou, come look at this monitor. They're everywhere. So Jane Land, it's pronounced Ham-Tram-Mick. And another one from Barry, Ham-Tram-Ick. All right, I think those are pretty close. Just saying. Yeah, I can't pronounce things. And we always love the corrections so I can realize what an idiot I am. And I don't know how to say these common places. So thank you, Jane Land and Barry, for confirming. Hamtram Mick and Hamtram Ick from Barry and Jalen. Appreciate you both. Thanks for giving us the updates on that. And friends, it's been a lovely stream. And so I think we might have Jim Tells You? Is he going to be streaming today? We'll check it out. We may send you over there. Yeah, Moshag says first baby is usually late. I think that is right. And they've told us that. We're just kind of having fun with it. Like the baby's going to come when the baby comes. But, like Alexis, I think, was saying it was going to be early, way early. Did she say like the 20th? I think she was thinking the 20th. So it's been like a lot longer than the 20th. And then the 27th comes and you're like, all right. And, it just keeps going and going and going. So we're like, whatever, baby's coming. All right. We'll see. So also this one, here's a comment about Candace. Only elite assassins can do this, says Candace Owens of a 6-month-old crawling across the kitchen floor. And I think that was related to the video, right? So she released a video and said the guy crawling around looked like something. She interpreted it one way. I didn't see anything particularly special about that video. But from the Babylon Bee, and I'm sure Candace will be live tonight in a little bit. And maybe she'll have more on the crawling assassin theory. But good stuff, my friends. Thank you for being here. Thanks for the conversation, for the donations and more. Hey, Mitch in the house. Rob, my baby beat yours. Born at 36 weeks, but still strong and healthy. Praying for yours. Man, thank you, Mitch. Congratulations on your new baby. That was quick. 36 weeks, man. Cooked that thing nice and quickly. Good stuff. All right, so Jim is on. And has the baby completed its law degree yet? No, not yet. We're going to have to, we got a lot to get through. We have to get through all the Federalist Papers and stuff. And, there's a whole litany of Supreme Court case law that we haven't even started yet. But we will. And that kid is going to be a little constitutional scholar. It's going to be great. So, all right, we'll pause here for the evening, my friends. It's a beautiful day and a beautiful night. Thank you, Rob, for that final donation. We'll pause here. Big thank yous to Donut Mind Me, to John, to Muffin Rando for clipping for us on the afternoon, to K Bean for the help in the morning. We got Neuro D, Janek, and Dog Digger. We got Geegum Geegum, Elliot, Just Rhonda, all modding the fort down for us, keeping things nice and orderly. We got Neuro D on X sharing our watchingthewatchers.locals.com. Members only community. If you care to join us, that's where we do our streams. In the morning, we also have the YouTube membership available if you want to join us there. B Torn talking about the Capitol switchboard and a Branca video. It may be easier to fire the judges for failure to hold their office during good behavior. Canon 2 in the Judges Code of Conduct. From Andrew Branca, man, shout out to him. He does some good work over there, another criminal defense attorney on the YouTubes. And thank you for flagging him. But we'll pause here for the night. I hope you have a great evening. I hope you rest hard. You have tremendous sleep, peaceful, beautiful dreams. And you come back here tomorrow to join us again, because we'll be back here. And in order to do all this appropriately, we are going to need to see you right back here so that together, with your help, we can shine that big, beautiful spotlight of accountability and transparency down upon our system with the hope of finding justice. Make it a beautiful night. Sleep very, very well. We'll see you right back here tomorrow. Bye-bye.
Thanks for watching, my beautiful friends. Now it's that time where the stream must end. You brought the heat with every chat and line. Together we expose corruption. One more time we dove in the truth where the media hides. Lit up the lies with receipts on all sides. The fight isn't over, but we made them sweat. We ain't done yet, no, not just yet. Because together we are watching the watchers. Truth on our side. friend who's ready to care. Tomorrow's lies are just today's news, but